This is a tiny creature driven only by a frantic need to survive. A single careless footstep across a sleeping beast would soon place his fragile life in terrible peril. The wrath of the Jungle King promised a swift and crushing doom. Follow this dangerous encounter and discover a truth that changed the wild forever. Deep within the sweltering embrace of the Emerald Jungle slept a magnificent creature. Golden sunlight filtered through the dense canopy above, casting a mesmerizing web of warm stripes across the tawny fur of the slumbering lion. His massive chest rose and fell. It moved with the rhythmic cadence of a slow, rumbling tide. Heat pressed down heavily upon the forest floor. The king of beasts rested peacefully after a long and exhausting morning hunt. Not a single bird dared to chirp too loudly near his resting place. Silence wrapped tightly around the clearing. Through the tangled roots and decaying leaves scurried a very different sort of animal. A tiny gray field mouse darted frantically in search of scattered seeds. Hunger pushed the desperate little scavenger forward. He moved with jerky, unpredictable twitches of his delicate whiskers. Shadow and light played tricks on his tiny black eyes. Rushing blindly past a massive fern, the gray creature scrambled directly up a soft, fur-covered mound. Reality snapped into focus far too late. The living mountain shifted violently beneath his tiny paws. A thunderous growl shattered the quiet afternoon air. The majestic lion awoke with a startling jolt. Faster than lightning, a massive paw slammed down over the terrified intruder. Heavy claws pinned the trembling scavenger firmly against the damp soil. Death loomed overhead. The gigantic predator leaned down dangerously close to inspect his unexpected captive. Hot, foul-smelling breath washed violently over the little one's shivering body. Yellow eyes narrowed. The mighty hunter contemplated swallowing the morsel whole, just for daring to interrupt his royal slumber.
Help! Help!
Complete panic seized the captured animal.
Oh no! Please!
Pleading for his fragile existence,
I beg of
the
you.
desperate little captive offered
Grant
a
me
frantic
this one
bargain.
request.
He swore upon the ancient forest that a gesture of mercy would never be forgotten. If the great king simply allowed him to escape, the debt would absolutely be repaid in the future. Perhaps a day would come when the mighty ruler might need the assistance of a lowly scavenger.
I agree.
A deep rumble began in the massive chest of the predator. That rumble erupted into a booming roar of genuine amusement. The very idea of an insignificant creature rescuing the absolute master of the wild seemed utterly ridiculous. Laughter shook the heavy leaves of the surrounding canopy. Amusement softened the harshness of the Jungle King. Lifting his heavy paw, the majestic feline allowed the trembling prisoner to scurry away into the deep underbrush. Life had been spared purely for the sake of a good joke. Weeks melted away into the humid breath of the changing season. The Emerald Jungle continued its endless cycle of predator and prey. Unseen dangers began creeping into the untamed territory. Men bearing heavy ropes and cruel intentions moved quietly through the shadows. These intruders strung thick nets high among the ancient branches. They concealed deadly snares beneath layers of innocent green foliage. Walking with the confident stride of a supreme monarch, the golden feline patrolled his sprawling domain. He suspected nothing out of the ordinary. A sudden violent snap echoed through the trees. The trap sprang. Ropes fell. Thick, abrasive cords entangled the powerful king before a single defensive strike could be made. The snare yanked him violently upward. Struggling only tightened the merciless grip of the hunter's net. Hemp fibers bit deeply into his golden hide. The trapped monarch thrashed wildly against his cruel bindings. Desperation fueled his massive muscles. Every twisting movement pulled the heavy knots tighter around his limbs. Defeat slowly replaced his fiery anger. The mighty sovereign threw back his magnificent head. A roar of absolute anguish tore through the silent jungle. That mournful sound carried miles across the vibrant landscape. Far away, under the twisted roots of a dying cedar tree, sat a familiar gray scavenger. He recognized the agonizing cry immediately. Gratitude burned brightly within his tiny chest. The small creature abandoned his safe burrow without a second thought. Tiny paws flew over rocks and fallen logs. He dashed fearlessly toward the heart of the terrifying commotion. The tension is at its peak. Before we discover the mighty king's fate, join our community so you won't miss what comes next. Arriving at the gloomy clearing, the tiny rescuer found the gigantic beast suspended helplessly above the ground. The magnificent creature hung completely trapped in a cage of woven terror. Defeat clouded the golden eyes of the captive. hope seemed entirely lost. Action replaced fear instantly. The gray scavenger scrambled straight up the thick tree trunk. He leaped boldly onto the swaying mass of abrasive ropes. Tiny, razor-sharp teeth immediately went to work on the primary knot holding the trap together. Wood fibers and bitter hemp filled his mouth. He chewed frantically through one thick strand after another. Small jaw muscles ached with intense effort. Blisters formed along his sensitive gums. Splinters pierced his tongue. Could such tiny jaws truly break these massive bonds? Action quickly answered the silent doubt. The determined little worker refused to stop. One heavy rope snapped under the relentless pressure. Then another thick cord gave way completely. The woven cage began to unravel significantly. Gravity pulled the heavy golden beast downward as the bindings loosened. A final determined bite severed the main support line. The enormous king crashed safely down onto the soft forest floor below. Shaking off the remnants of the broken net, the majestic feline stood tall once more. He looked down quietly at the exhausted creature sitting upon a fallen leaf. No booming laughter echoed through the clearing this time. Only silent, profound respect passed between the towering monarch and the tiny savior. A promise made in the shadow of death had been miraculously fulfilled. The massive predator slowly bowed his great head in sincere gratitude. They parted ways as equals within the endless green kingdom. Kindness is never truly wasted. Even the smallest friend can overcome the greatest burden.